Hey guys, Jonas here. Today is another Photoshop tutorial day and we're gonna try and add an Instagram filter look to our nice photographs, all while maintaining the high resolution of the photographs and also full control over the changes that we make to the photograph. We're gonna try and recreate two really popular Instagram filters, the Clarendon filter and the Valencia filter. Alright, let's get started. I will first work with this picture of Louise by her bike. As you can see, it's a raw image, which means that there are a lot of ways I can go about adjusting this picture. We have several tutorials on how to play with the raw info to touch up photos, but this time I'm not going to do a lot to the raw picture at all. And just for demonstration, I am in fact going to use a pretty plain looking JPEG version of this image. I basically just opened the raw image in Photoshop and exported a JPEG version of it. Remember that in this tutorial I just want to show you one workflow of how to get that Instagram look. Since pictures may vary, you know, the white balance and the exposure and that kind of thing as well. And this will hopefully then open up multiple ways for you to modify this workflow to make it your own later. I will be using Photoshop 6, so it's a slightly older version, but that doesn't matter, same thing. Okay, so one of the most popular filters in Instagram is Clarendon. Is that how you say it? Clarendon. This is what the picture would look like on Instagram. Clarendon kind of brightens up light areas and adds dark to darker areas, and the colors really stand out as well. In Photoshop, here's my original photo. I will first go down here below the layers and click this icon to add what's called an adjustment layer. I'm going to start with a curve layer and see how the adjustment layer appears above the highlighted photo layer. So everything that is done in the adjustment layer will then affect everything that is visible below the adjustment layer. The properties of the adjustment layer appears here. First, I'm making just a classic S-shaped curve to brighten up the white and darkening the blacks, like this. Just drag the line a little bit. Now I'm gonna add a new adjustment layer, hue saturation this time. I'm going to work on selected colors here. First, yellow. I'm changing the hue slightly. No, +9 here. Cyan, saturate it a little bit and then brighten it up slightly. And the blue, I'm changing the hue first, dragging it down, and saturation, increasing that quite a bit, and then adding brightness to it as well, quite a lot. I'm also going to add a new hue saturation adjustment layer to change the master. I know I could have done probably all of this in the previous layer, but for visualization I'll keep the actions separate for now. I'm increasing the master hue slightly and the saturation as well, +10 here. And the lightness, I'm going to brighten this up a little bit as well. As easy. This is what the image looks like after those 3 adjustment layers. And if I compare it to my Instagram, I think that does a pretty good job. Remember to take the numbers that I have added to my adjustment layers, the saturation and the hues especially, with a pinch of salt. You might have to adjust those a little bit to fit your image depending on what your picture looks like to begin with. But that's a pretty simple workflow right there. Okay, now to the filter Valencia. This filter has a kind of a slight yellow hue, giving it a little bit of a vintage look. So I'm gonna start by making a duplicate layer here of our original photo of Louise. I'm just gonna drag it up to the top, like that. This is what the original photo looked like. I'm gonna actually rename it to Valencia. And we're gonna do a lot of similar things to this layer that we just did with the other filter. I'm gonna start by adding an adjustment filter, like before. First one is going to be curves. But instead of giving it an S-curve this time, I'm gonna go ahead and drag up the brightness, because this Valencia filter has it's more of a bright feel to it. Instead of dragging down the blacks below the bar, I'm just gonna kind of drag it back down to the straight line, like this. Okay. Now I'm gonna go and add another adjustment layer. This time we're gonna do something different. Because the Valencia filter has this kind of yellowish vintage feel, we're gonna add a gradient map. With the gradient map, the whole image turns kind of black and white because this is the default setting, going black to white. So I'm gonna double click up here on the black to white bar, which allows us to pick a gradient preset. So instead of black to white, I'm gonna go ahead and pick this one, which is red and green. So the image goes all funky. Everything that was black in the image is now red, and everything that was white is now green, and then there's this gradient in between. We don't want it to be red and green, of course, but we do want it to be slightly yellow. And with the Valencia filter, I also feel that the black has a lot of magenta in it. So what we're gonna do is go down here to the red paint bucket. It's probably not a paint bucket, but yeah, it looks a little bit like it. Double click that. And like I said, I feel that the blacks have a lot of magenta. So I'm gonna pull this down to here, somewhere here. And I'm gonna give the black in the image more of a purple feel. And then I'm gonna go to the white side, which is now green, and give it more of a yellowish feel, kind of a washed out grayish yellow. Something like this. Okay, so here's our image. Of course, it doesn't look anything like the picture that we want it to look like. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna right click on the layer, and we're gonna go up to blending options. And we have the blending mode up here, which is now set to normal. I'm gonna click that, and we're gonna go down and give it what's called a soft light blending mode, like that. So now see how the whole image got a little bit of a yellow bright feel? And we can also go up here and decrease the opacity a little bit, something like just under 70%, something like that. I think that's gonna look pretty good. Now let's go back down and add another adjustment layer. This time is going to be brightness and contrast. I feel that the Valencia filter has a pretty low contrast feel, so I'm gonna drag down the contrast. -42 is where I'm at right now. So now the last thing I'm going to do is adjust the colors just a little bit. So I'm adding another adjustment layer, hue saturation this time, just like before. I'm gonna start with the master, drop the saturation just a little bit, and also drop the lightness a little bit. And then I'm gonna do the colors. Red, increase the hue by about +3, increase saturation +3, and I'm gonna drop the lightness a little bit. I'm just gonna drop the saturation of the blue just a little bit. And then I'm gonna do the yellow. I'm changing the hue to +2, and I'm increasing the saturation just a little bit as well, +8. And I'm gonna increase the yellow lightness just a little bit as well. Now at this end stage is pretty much all about fine-tuning and personal preference. And with the adjustment layers, it is so easy. For example, I feel that the gradient map needs to be more distinct purple, so then I can just open that adjustment layer and fix it like this. I'm also going to increase the lightness of the yellow here in my hue saturation layer. I'm actually going to drag it up to more than +20. And the lightness of the red also needs to increase, I think. And lastly, I am going to increase the saturation of the yellow as well. Sorry for these last minute adjustments, but it is at this last stage when you really see what you need to correct to make it look the way you want it to. Okay, I think that's it. Let's compare to the Instagram image. Not too bad, I think. So these are a couple of quick workflows to add that Instagram look to your high resolution pictures. Now you have full control over the images and can make good quality prints or use in other graphical work if you like. This also gave you a basic tutorial of how to work with adjustment layers. And what is really cool now is that I can import other pictures into this project I just did, like this picture of my cat, and just drag the layer to where my photo of Louise was and instantly give it the same treatment as I just did with the previous photo. Pretty sweet, huh? I actually messed around with the Hefe filter as well, but I will hold on to that for later if you tell me you would like more workflows like this. And if you do want more videos like this, feel free to let us know which filters you want us to do next. We're also starting to add a lot more content to our Instagrams. We have two. I'm adding the links here. Untamed Science is the one that Rob's taking charge of, and I am in charge of the Behind the Science Instagram account. We're putting up a lot of pictures that we take and also a lot of kind of fun stuff from productions. Check those out, and thanks for watching. See you next week.